Hello there, a very good evening to you indeed, and many thanks for joining us on Rwanda Television News tonight. I hope that you had yourselves a great and a productive Wednesday. And welcome to our night's edition. These are the headlines. Good governance has been identified as a pillar for building a stable security system. President William Ruto of Kenya has pointed out that M23 is a Congolese problem that needs a Congolese solution. A great evening to you once again, and thank you for your company on Rwanda Television News tonight. And as we begin this edition of the news, let us inform you that President Paul Kagame has chaired a cabinet meeting at Village Rugwiro. The last such meeting to be held was on the 25th of April and saw a number of key resolutions reached, including the approval of appointments in different institutions of the government and the acknowledgement of significant upcoming events. And to what made our top stories, good governance has been identified as a pillar for building stable security systems, helping citizens, especially the youth, to avoid from engaging in radicalization and extremism. This was reiterated at the opening of the 11th National Security Symposium that is taking place in Kigali, Rwanda. Adam Squizera brings us the details.
I don't know, I just wanted to ask you a couple of things.
On the panel that kicked off the 11th National Security Symposium 2024, experts reiterated the importance of creating common thread in the fight against radicalization and extremism. Researchers and security experts highlighted the significant impact on these issues on the security of Africa. Good governance was identified as a crucial pillar for building a stable security system which helps citizens, especially the youth, to avoid from engaging in radicalization and extremism. The Secretary General of the National Intelligence and Security Service, Major General Joseph Nsabamwita, emphasized that prioritizing the development of the infrastructure and job creations for the youth will provide a lasting solution to the problems of extremism and radicalization.
Rwanda, as a small country, the leadership has decided to invest in infrastructure that are going to be a catalyst for the employment of the youth. Not only do we host the international conferences, but we are now moving towards sports infrastructure whereby you include the hopes of youth, the magnitude of youth that should go into the sports industry, the cultural industry. Now, if we can bring all the African youth in terms of competitions, in terms of employment, then this is a practical way of actually drawing the youth away from radicalization, from being exposed to these negative tendencies, to the actual aspirations of the youth, and which also end up actually giving employment to the countries, development of our countries, but also an effective way of deterrence.
This annual National Security Symposium was jointly organized by the Rwanda Defense Force Command and Staff College, RDF, and the University of Rwanda. Some of the students highlight that this is also a valuable opportunity to gain skills in addressing many of the security challenges facing the continent.
We've noticed that Africa needs to take charge of its narratives, and also to allow the youth have a voice in all that, in the governance and the whatever surrounds the country. And all in all, we intend to have to boost our own knowledge.
Rwanda's worldview cannot be explained.
The Minister of Defense, Juvenal Marizamonda, noted that justice and solidarity should be the key catalyst for the development of the African continent.
We must work based on justice with renewed urgency and solidarity. There is an opportunity to create a more inclusive, comprehensive, and effective global order that works for everyone.
The three-day National Security Symposium, which started on Wednesday, brought together leaders from various security bodies, researchers and experts who are linked to the security sector on the African continent and beyond. Adam Squizera, RwandaTV News, Kigali.
Thank you, Adams. And still on the security symposium, Brigadier General Andrew Nyamvumba, the commandant of the Rwanda Defense Force Command and Staff College, which organizes the National Security Symposium, highlighted some of the key points to be discussed during the three-day gathering that is taking place for the 11th time. He was speaking to our colleague, Adams Kwizera.
As today we kick off the National Security Symposium, I'm with the commandant of the Rwanda Defense Force Command and Staff College, who is going to elaborate much of the things that will be on the table during this three-day-long symposium. Then, sir, what should we expect in this 11th National Security Symposium as we start it today?
Thank you very much. As usual, it's the 11th time. It's a revolving theme where we focus on the contemporary security challenges facing the world with a focus on the African perspective. So we will cover mostly elements of security that we see are driving global trends, both in security threats that are between and states as well as non-state actors. We are looking at radicalism and extremism amongst the youth, and which solution spaces can we identify that would be able to push the continent out of this situation. We also are going to look at contributing factors including climate change, food insecurity, poverty, bad governance, over the next 3 days. To achieve that, we are going to have experts, practitioners in the security field, experts in different fields that are contributing to security, as well as academicians and researchers. With those, we are going to be able to explore in depth different aspects of insecurity, focusing on the African perspective over the next 3 days.
Well, on the opening session panel, they reiterated, those researchers and some academicians reiterated on the youth radicalization and extremism. What do you think are the role of the government in avoiding that, especially in the youth, since we are talking about the continent? And what do you think are the role of the government to eradicate that radicalization and extremism among the youth?
Thank you. It is very important that we consider the youth, because Africa is youthful, and an example is given of Rwanda, where more than 70% of the population is below the age of 35. So that is true for other African countries. In brief, the reason that the youth find themselves in a situation where they are radicalized and experience extremist ideologies and act on them, those conditions must be addressed. And the way those are addressed is through governance and deliberate efforts to make sure that the youth are given hope and are focused on development and progress, and that only happens when the underlying issues are addressed. So this symposium, the session that initiated the discussion on youth radicalization and extremism, was mostly focused on the current data available that demonstrates clearly what needs to be done. The data informs us of the scale of the problem, and governments can only collaborate and work towards cross-border solutions that would mitigate the flow of youth to centers and epicenters of radicalization. There's also an aspect of tools being used, and in the end we noticed that the media that is being used is not the issue, it is the message being passed through the media. And addressing that and creating our own narrative as the continent is what is going to help us.
Concluding, What do you think the students from the RDF Command and Staff College will benefit from this motion?
Thank you. The students doing the master's program are actually exploring global trends that are leading to contemporary insecurity on the continent and elsewhere. So the students are going to benefit from practitioners, academicians, and experts in this field to better understand the root causes and the solution space available for them to conceptualize the future requirement for addressing these issues.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And moving ahead, President William Ruto of Kenya has pointed out that the problem of insecurity in the eastern DRC is not Rwanda's problem, and instead an issue the government of the DRC and its people need to resolve on their own. The Kenyan head of state has also stressed that the government of the DRC, blaming Rwanda for the problems it has with the M23 rebel group, will not solve the problem, and that dialogue between the two warring sides is the only path to long-term peace. President Ruto made the comments while speaking to Jeune Afrique.
During the interview, the Kenyan head of state made it clear that he does not believe in beating about the bush when it comes to the matter of the conflict in the DRC, urging that a direct and frank approach be taken by all in admitting the reality of the situation.
If you ask me, I would go along and say, let us forget about complicating this problem. This is not about Rwanda and DRC. This is not about Kagame and Tshisekedi. This is about citizens and their government. And if we understood it in that context, the sooner we will solve the problem.
Regarding the wider regional implications of the conflict, President William Ruto noted that it is hindering the development of the EAC, even though there is no doubt that what is happening in the eastern DRC is in fact a civil war.
As heads of state, in a meeting, we asked M23, the people in there, are they Rwandese or they are Congolese? And DRC said, these are Congolese. End of question. So if these are Congolese, how does it become a Rwanda problem? How does it become a Kagame problem? I think since it is settled that M23 are Congolese, it is a Congolese problem, and therefore we need a Congolese solution.
His Excellency William Ruto also stressed that the government of the DRC choosing conflict over peace is doing nothing to help the situation, and that there needs to be a return to the negotiation table for both sides in the dispute.
EAC, we believe that the challenge in Eastern DRC cannot be solved using military force, especially if those in contention are willing to have a conversation. That is why we asked the government of DRC to consider seriously using the instruments that are available in the Nairobi peace process, which is a dialogue process, or in the Rwanda peace process, which is also a dialogue process, or even a combination of both. We still believe that the solution to the challenges of Eastern DRC do not lie in use of military force, but lie in a consultative dialogue process, and the instruments are available. The sooner we access, the sooner we use the instruments of dialogue, consultation that are in place, the sooner we will solve that problem.
Unfortunately, the government in Kinshasa is yet to wake up to the reality that this is not a problem it can fight its way out of, a fact reinforced by the lack of results seeking the military support of SADC forces has continued to show.
For the first time ever, the Ideal Democratic Party has decided to submit its own candidates to stand in the parliamentary elections and not join ranks with the RPF Inkotanyi party. As of Wednesday, other individuals as well as have continued to submit their candidature to the National Electoral Commission ahead of the July polls. 23 out of 55 candidates on PDI's list are women, and the party's second vice president has gone on record to say that its members are confident in its ability to do well in the parliamentary elections without having to join forces with the RPF. Regarding the presidential elections that will take place in July, alongside the parliamentary ones, the Ideal Democratic Party decided to support the candidate put forward by the RPF Inkotanyi. Independent candidates and those in special categories have also continued to submit the required documents in order to vie for seats in the parliament, and the National Electoral Commission said it will be receiving them until 30th of this month of May, with the final list to be approved both in presidential and parliamentary elections to be made public on 14th of June, and campaigning to run from 22nd of that month until the 13th of July, a day before the polls begin. Moving ahead to other matters, by the end of September this year, a modern textile factory will be in Burera district of the northern province of Rwanda, providing employment opportunities to youth in that the youth in that part of the country say they are ready to take advantage of. Located at the former handcraft center that belonged to the district of Burera and was later privatized, the factory premises already has 300 tailors who have been trained to produce the best fabrics that have begun being sold on the international market. Efforts to renovate and upgrade the factory began in January and will substantially increase its output potential once complete. The operation will cost 2.8 billion Rwandan francs, and the new factory will have 1,500 permanent employees, becoming the single biggest employer in Burera. And moving ahead, the Kant House Museum is being changed so that it exhibits accurately reflects the legacy of Rwanda's colonial past. Most notably, the exhibit shows the impact colonialism on Rwanda's culture and how those effects have continued to be felt even to this day.
In this museum until recently, since 2017 till last year, actually had an exhibition here. So, but that exhibition has been criticized by our public, both national and international visitors. So they were critical for various reasons. So number one, they was telling that this museum, the content is not complete, it is somehow silent, it does not help visitors to interpret the history correctly. And they was also saying that this museum, the previous exhibition, instead of highlighting the very negative aspect and impacts of colonialism, it was glorifying the German resident Richard Kant. So they were recommending to change completely, and if possible even to change the name of this museum and the monument here. So it is in response to their feedback, to their reaction, that we changed to complete the content and also to meet their expectation.
The renovations have been commended by the German ambassador to Rwanda.
I'm very happy to be here today for the official opening of of the Kant Museum's exhibition with a new concept, where a team of Rwandan and German scientists have worked together for the very first time to have a more modern view on the whole museum, on the history, and also on colonialism as such. So I think it's very interesting to not just have like photos all over and people wandering around and making up their mind, but it's a very deep and thought-provoking explanation now with the photos, and it gives you a background, and so it's a more holistic view, and I think it was high time to have a exhibition here that points to the future and that also is more accessible to young people, because in the end it comes to them, that they learn from history and that they avoid mistakes that were made in the past.
Moving ahead, mining operators in Rwanda have stated that the implementation of the new law will significantly reduce illegal and chaotic mining activities. The Committee on National Budget and Patrimony in the Chamber of Deputies initiated the review of a draft law regulating mining activities. Under the proposed legislation, individuals engaged in illegal mining could face severe penalties, including up to 3 years of imprisonment and fines of up to 30 million Rwandan francs. Jean-Malik Karima, the chairperson of the Rwanda Miners Association, expressed strong support for the anticipated provisions of the law.
It gives us a room of a negotiation, because before the law was very tight. You make a mistake in your operation, you were really sentenced. But by today, we come to discuss on how you can pay a fee when it comes to to compensate what you did. So again, we come to focus also on the illegal miners, because illegal miners were really a threat.
They were tolerated?
They were really tolerated. There were no law against that. So by today, we can see that there is a way of really penalize them.
Judith Uwizeye, the cabinet minister in the office of the president, emphasized that local leaders and citizens found deliberately concealing illegal mining activities will face consequences.
Umuyobozi warebereye cyangwa se utafashe igikorwa.
A leader who doesn't report such activities, yet it's their obligation, will be punished. Also, a citizen who deliberately facilitates illegal mining and shares the interest with the illegal miner is a criminal. A leader will be regarded as a criminal when they commit what is described in the law as crimes or mistakes, or when they are negligent. MPs have proposed a clear differentiation between prospecting and operational mining activities. The fact that you carried out prospecting doesn't mean that you should be given the authority to carry out mining activities. Although one might have the knowledge, I think it should be differentiated, because in some cases, they might distort the research for their own interests. If possible, mining activities should commence after extensive research in order to minimize losses. Parliamentarians have voiced the necessity for the bill to incorporate the article outlining the collaborative efforts between the Rwanda Miners, Petroleum and Gas Board and local authorities to mitigate the risks associated with mining activities, including fatalities and various other related issues. Local residents who have been assisted by the VUP initiative say they have managed to pull themselves out of poverty thanks to the help they got, and are now assisting others to do the same. Since 2008, the initiative has been helping beneficiaries by providing employment opportunities, the money they earn helping them to improve their social welfare. Officials at the local administrative entities development agency say that they oversee such initiatives, has urged beneficiaries to properly utilize the opportunities they are given and not expect to be assisted indefinitely, because that is not the objective of VUP. Between 2019 and 2024, more than 14 billion Rwandan francs was injected in VUP in Huye district alone, with employees being provided with employment on government projects, others getting capital for small businesses, the provision of domestic livestock, the payment of health insurance for the most vulnerable in the society, the assistance of teen mothers, and more. VUP is yet to be implemented in only 3 of Rwanda's 416 sectors. And in more matters, Kigali residents are happy about the fact that their joint efforts with the government in residential areas have been paying off, with significant strides being made in a development. Example of this is the construction of the 7-kilometer Karumuna-Bweramvura road that would have seen the government provide more than 2 billion Rwandan francs in compensation to local residents that provided portions of their land but chose to forfeit the payment or the payout, and instead even contributed their own money to the construction of the modern road in addition to the land they provided. Senators, part of the Standing Committee on Political Affairs and Government, who took the time to visit such activities, have praised such partnerships, noting that they will inevitably result in accelerated development for the country. The senators did, however, note that more needs to be done in places like Kigali City to assist a number of families to come out of poverty on a permanent basis. And that's all from us here at RBA's Rwanda Television News. On behalf of the entire news production, as well as the technical team that made it happen, many thanks for being with us. And up until next time, stay safe and have a great evening. Goodbye.